My friends, the American attacks are continuing at this very moment, local time 2:40 p.m. here in Israel. American strikes on Iran while I am speaking here with you. Meanwhile, the Iranian regime has made a confession finally. In writing, in the official statement from the Revolutionary Guard, they admitted that they placed naval mines inside the Strait of Hormuz. Mines in those waters where a fifth of the world's oil passes through. And speaking of oil, right here next to me I put the live global oil price, okay? It's already at $80 a barrel. It's going up, folks. And the confession came along with another civilian who isn't coming home. The Indian sailor lost his life aboard a United Arab Emirates oil tanker, and this is the first confirmed loss on a commercial ship since Iran started shooting there in the strait. This death has been confirmed with a name and a flag as well, and the Emirates have already promised a military response. This morning, residents of Dubai reported fighter jets flying over the city. In other words, this is no longer just the United States against Iran. This has turned into a regional war, my friends. That's what's happening now, but Israel is still on the outside. For now. Just look at what's already involved. The Houthis have joined in, Saudi Arabia has joined in, and now the Emirates are joining too. And I went and counted, guys, do the math with me. United States, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Jordan, Oman. And Iraq, which was struck by Iranian missiles this week. 11 countries, guys, 11. And all of this happened in 72 hours. And Trump responded by announcing the most difficult target on the planet, which is not a base, and this time it's not a port either, it's a mountain. A mountain where not even the biggest bomb in the American arsenal can reach. And I'm going to explain exactly what's inside. And here in Israel, another sign appeared. A sign that's worth more than 1,000 analyses. If you follow the channel, you already know what I use as my barometer on this channel. It's not a politician's speech, it's not from the military, and it's not an official statement. My barometer is where the troops are, it's where the aircraft are. And what showed up at Tel Aviv airport today says only one thing. Our summer here in the Middle East promises to be intense, and in the middle of all this there's a question that no one is asking, and it's the most important of all. What's happening here right now? Is this a war or is it an operation? Because the answer changes everything. It changes what Trump can do, it changes what Congress can prevent, and it changes how long this is going to last. And I'm going to give you that answer with the letter that Trump sent to Congress, which the American press has already published. And I'm going to say something here that I've said a few times before. It's impossible to bring you what's happening in the Middle East in 8 minutes or 10 minutes. It's impossible, guys. You can't do it in a video. And that's why this channel exists the way it does. The difference here is the live streams. You all know that very well. I'm sharing all the information so you can see the full picture. I'll be direct with those who complain about the video's length. If you really want to understand why everything is getting more expensive in your city, why fuel prices go up, why the price of things keeps changing all the time, you need to understand the whole story. And that takes time. There's no other way. Because that's the big problem nowadays. People only read the headline. They read the headline, don't open the article, don't check the source, and already start giving their opinion, right guys? That's how it works these days. They also start arguing on the internet, already convinced about something they don't even know. So nobody really knows anything because nobody goes all the way. And here, we always go all the way. So subscribe and turn on the notification bell because this story is changing by the hour. Actually, I can say it's changing by the minute. And today, at 11 p.m. Israel time, the American naval blockade against Iran's ports begins once again. Let's go into the early hours because all of this happened after we finished our last live stream last night. The American military command released the report by direct order of the president, 5 straight hours of operations against military targets inside Iran. Folks, pay attention. 5 hours, coastal defenses, missile positions, drone bases, naval capability, and just look at the list of where they struck. Bushehr, Chabahar, Jask, Konarak, Abu Musa Island, and Bandar Abbas. And now notice something else that changes everything. Take the first name on this list and the second, and the distance between the two is 1,000 kilometers. 1,000 kilometers within the same country on the same night. This is no longer just an attack in the neighborhood, it's the whole country becoming a target. At least we're expanding operations now. And the American press geolocated the images, fire and smoke coming from a port facility on Kish Island, not on Karak Island, on Kish, and there was also a target, right? There was also a target in Saravan, almost on the border with Pakistan, on the other side of the country, far from the strait. In other words, the map of US strike targets is no longer just the coastal strip. It has become a blot covering all of Iran. Trump has already warned that tonight and tomorrow there will be more. He has given this warning. And now I need to tell you what happened at sea, because that's where this story got dirtier. Two oil tankers from the United Arab Emirates were hit by cruise missiles while sailing along the southern route of the strait within Oman's territorial waters. Pay attention to this, guys. Oman's waters, not Iran's waters, waters that belong to Oman, which was mediating peace. Both ships caught fire, and the Ministry of Defense of the Emirates confirmed it. An Indian crew member lost his life. 6 Indians and 2 Ukrainians who were working on that ship were injured, 4 of them in serious condition. An Indian civilian sailor working on a commercial ship that has nothing to do with this conflict is not going to return home. Pay close attention. The Revolutionary Guard has claimed responsibility for the attack, and their statement is a public confession. Quote, "The ships ignored repeated warnings. They chose to cross a minefield, and that's why they were hit and put out of operation." End quote. Listen to that again, okay? If you need it, they chose to cross a minefield. Minefield, it's the first time he's written it like that, guys. In other words, Iran just admitted in writing in their official statement that they placed naval mines inside the Strait of Hormuz. And you? Do you know what a naval mine is, guys? It's the most cowardly weapon there is. It just stays there underwater waiting. It doesn't know if the ship is military or civilian. It doesn't know if it's a cruise ship either, okay? It doesn't know anything. It doesn't know the ship's flag, who's on board, or anything else. It just waits. And the regime not only confessed, pay attention to this, it used the mine as a justification. In other words, for the regime, the blame is on the sailor who died. And why? Because he had the audacity to sail without asking Iran for permission. And the Emirates responded with a phrase that needs to be taken seriously. Open quotes. The Emirates reserve the right to respond to this aggression and will take all necessary measures to protect the country and its people. Close quotes. Keep this phrase in mind. It's not just talk from the Emirates. They've already shown they act differently. Because the Emirates used exactly this same language before getting involved in the fight against Iran back then, and it was later revealed that they took part in the attacks against Iran. And I'll tell you, I mentioned that at the beginning of today's video too, right? This morning there were already fighter jets flying over Dubai as well. So it's not a coincidence. It could be that they're already actively participating in this war. And Iran just provoked yet another neighbor. And this neighbor has money, a lot of money, has modern fighter jets, and now they also have someone to avenge. So, if this video is already giving you what the headlines don't, I deserve your like, guys. Leave your like, give a thumbs up on this video because it helps a lot. Because now comes the most serious threat that Trump has ever made against Iran, and it's about a mountain. In an interview with an American radio station, Trump was asked about a place that Americans call Pickaxe Mountain. And this was his answer: "We are going to take down the mountain. Tell the Iranians to get ready. Let them know that we are coming, okay? And there's nothing they can do about it." Pickaxe Mountain is a possible target for a big strike right at the front door. We are watching closely. We see activity there. We don't see activity there. They're not doing well on the nuclear front. Every time we hear about something, we blow it up. We'll probably strike that location soon. End quote. Now let me explain to you what this place is, right? Because without that, Trump's threat doesn't even make sense. It was like this. The reporter just suddenly asked him about this mountain. It was a report that was published in an Israeli newspaper. And this reporter read it, definitely read it here in Israel, and asked Trump about it over there, okay? That's how this information got to that reporter. That's really the name of this mountain, right? Kur, I think that's how you say it in Persian. Kur Kolan Gasla. That's its name in Persian, okay? And the literal translation is as follows. It's the mountain that looks like a pickaxe. So it's Kur Kolan Gazla. Iranians, correct me if I'm wrong, Logan, isn't that how you say it? The Iranians named it for the peak's shape, and the Americans translated that name. It's in central Iran, right next to the Natanz nuclear facility. And look at how this mountain was formed, actually how this project came to be. In July 2020, the advanced centrifuge factory in Natanz was blown up. A mysterious explosion that the regime was never able to properly explain. Okay? Some say it was Mossad. Others say it was a technical or mechanical failure inside, but it was blown up. Then the head of the Iranian Atomic Agency went to parliament and announced at that time, "We are going to build a new hall, a centrifuge hall inside the heart of the mountain." And that's exactly what they did, folks. That same year, they started digging tunnels inside the rock. On a mountain that's 1,600 meters high, 1,600 meters high. That's really tall, folks. That's a lot. And now pay close attention to this number because it's the whole problem. Those tunnels are between 80, according to intelligence, between 80 and 100 meters below the surface, and the biggest bunker buster bomb in the American arsenal. That same one that hit the Doe Forum last year penetrates about 60 meters, okay? That's it. 60 meters, 70 meters. Do the math with me. The hole is 100 meters, the bomb reaches 60. In other words, the Iranians dug deep enough to stay out of reach of the biggest conventional bomb the United States has. And they didn't do this by accident. They measured, they calculated. They're far from being dumb. They're extremely smart. But now comes the question you must be asking yourself, probably, and that's the right question. And what if the Americans drop several bombs in the same hole, one after another? Can't they dig deeper that way? In other words, one layer after another? Yes, they can. And that's exactly what they did in Fordo. The Americans didn't drop a single bomb, they dropped 12-12, all on the same target. The technique works like this. The first bomb opens the way, the second goes through the hole made by the first and goes deeper, layer by layer, and there was also a brilliant detail in that operation at Fordo. The main targets in Fordo were the ventilation shafts. They didn't try to pierce the rock. The bombs went in through the air ducts. But then comes the problem with Pickaxe Mountain. The biggest problem of all. First, that mountain is even deeper than Fordo. And second, the most serious of all, no one knows what's inside that mountain. In Fordo, the Americans knew where the air ducts were. They knew exactly where to hit. At Pickaxe Mountain, no one knows. Not even where the entrances are, not where the rooms are, not even where the air comes in. There is nothing and no one who knows anything about what's inside. And there's another detail, and this one is technical too, but it's worth its weight in gold. That American bomb can pierce about 18 meters of regular reinforced concrete. Okay? 18 meters of regular reinforced concrete. But Iranian research has already developed concrete up to 6 times stronger than regular concrete. So, if they use this concrete inside that mountain, and they probably did, and no one is going to say yes or no, the bomb pierces much less than the official figures say, okay? It pierces less, so it can't reach its target. Stacking bombs is possible, but against a mountain like that, not knowing what's inside makes it a shot in the dark. You don't know where the ventilation ducts are or anything else. International inspectors have never entered this place, never. The UN Atomic Agency chief has publicly confirmed this. He asked questions back then about that place, and Tehran simply refused to answer. And here's the detail. What sets this target apart from all the others? About Fordo, the West knew everything. They knew the layout, they knew the structure inside, they knew where every room was in that place. Do you know why? Do you know why? Because Mossad took files out of Tehran in 2018. Do you remember when Netanyahu showed a room full of files? Exactly. It was these files that gave rise to this Fordo mission, and the mission was successful because of these files. About that shady mountain there, almost nobody knows anything. What we have are satellite images, and this month's images show new construction, vehicles moving around, tunnel entrances being reinforced, and there's one more thing I need to tell you. This mountain has never been hit, guys. Not even during the 12-day round of fighting last year, in 2025, and not now either. In other words, no missile has ever landed there, until today. Now put the pieces together. If a 60-meter bomb can't reach a tunnel 100 meters deep, then attacking that mountain from the air won't solve anything. You can destroy the tunnel entrances, you can block the door with dirt and rocks, but as we know, they clear that out in a few weeks and go right back to operating. In other words, to really take out a place like that, someone has to go in on the ground, guys. On the ground. So I ask you, if Trump just said he's only using naval resources and that there are no American soldiers on Iranian soil, how does he plan to take down that mountain? That's the million-dollar question. There are only 2 possible answers. Either he's bluffing to pressure Tehran at the negotiating table, or he's preparing the ground for something he hasn't announced yet. And now I want you to remember something I told you yesterday. That's why it's important to watch the video until the end, folks, because one thing connects to another, because it fits here like a glove. Pay attention. I showed you that a good part of the recent American operations targeted Iran's communication towers. Do you remember that? I also told you here that this is a classic operation and preparation of someone who intends to go deeper. You cut off the enemy's communications before going in. In other words, they are left without contact, okay? This is preparation for a ground incursion. And now put those 2 things together. On one side, the Americans are taking down the communication antennas, leaving the Iranian command unable to talk to their own troops, and on the other, the American president is announcing that he's going to bring down a mountain that will only really fall if someone goes in on the ground, okay? That's the only way. This isn't a coincidence, this is a sequence. And it's a message, folks, a message. I'm not saying that the Americans are going to invade Iran tomorrow. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that whoever cuts off the enemy's communication and at the same time targets something that can only be resolved on the ground is doing exactly what you do before putting boots on the ground. And that's what I'm going to keep an eye on in the next few hours and days, because this could happen at any moment, right? And look at the rest of what Trump said in this interview. Listen to everything, folks, no cuts, okay? Because every sentence here is a bombshell. Quote, "We had an agreement and they just broke it. For them, agreements exist to be broken. You can't trust them, no way. The memorandum was a test and they failed. A signed paper with the other side is worthless. And if they ever get an atomic weapon, they will use it within days." End quote. And in the same interview, Trump described a scene that sounds like a movie. It's about the attempted deal that fell through that Sunday. According to him, the Iranian representatives were in the room, ready to negotiate, and then they got a phone call and ran out of the room. They left. Before that, in other words, someone from somewhere in Tehran called and told them to abort the mission. That is, the negotiations. And who do you think made that call? It's the same divided house I've explained in several videos. Politicians negotiate, the Revolutionary Guard pulls the leash, and Trump also commented on the Strait. He said the following: "We control the Strait. They can cause trouble. They can do things that aren't legal, but we control it. The things that aren't legal are what happened, right, guys? Those are the shots fired at the ships." And before the main question of this video, take a look at the summary that Trump himself presented about what was left of the Iranian military power, according to him. He recalled that 4 months ago, Iran had the strongest army in the Middle East. They were called the bully of the region. Those were Trump's words. And today, according to the American president, Iran no longer has a navy. 159 ships have sunk to the bottom of the sea. 230 fighter jets are out of operation. The radars, the anti-aircraft systems, everything has been dismantled. And he finished with the most chilling part of the story, which is that the first and second tier leadership was entirely removed from the scene, and part of the third tier was also removed. And now, a note here, folks, because this channel doesn't repeat numbers without checking. These numbers are the accumulated total since February, okay? They're not from this week yet, folks. This week's numbers haven't been included yet, all right? We're talking about February here. But they explain why Iran today attacks civilian ships, right? They target nearby bases instead of confronting the American fleet directly because they lack the capability. Those who had a navy don't have it anymore. Those who had fighter jets don't have them anymore. All that's left are small boats, mines, and missiles fired from afar. That's what they have now. It's the tactic of those with nothing left. Those who are cornered cause the most civilian casualties because, having no options, they target civilians. That's what they do. Now I'll give you the clearest sign yet, which appeared here in Israel. Those of you who follow the channel know I always repeat this. I've said it many times on other channels. With Shimon at the breaking point, we discussed it and I said the same thing. The best indicator of conflict isn't the president's statement or Netanyahu's or Congress or anyone else's. It's where the troops are and where the aircraft are. Speech can lie, it can manipulate, but a refueling plane doesn't lie. So look at what happened today at Ben Gurion Airport, the main airport in Israel. About a month ago, American refueling planes were taking up a huge part of the airport's parking apron. There were so many military planes that there weren't enough spots for commercial planes, okay? That was widely reported in the press. And a decision was made to move those planes to Air Force bases to free up space. So some planes went to Qatar, others went to the United Arab Emirates, others went to Eilat Airport here in Israel, others to Israeli Air Force bases as well, and others anyway left Ben Gurion. Many, not all many, to free up the airport so that new civilian planes can arrive in Israel, in other words, to bring back the tourism that existed here before, right? Since they couldn't come, airlines couldn't fly here due to lack of space for planes. But now, with the escalation, okay? That decision had been made to remove them from there to free up the airport. But now, because of this escalation that's happening, now that transfer has been frozen. And some of the American refueling planes returned to Ben Gurion. They came back, okay? Now they're saying they're not going to accept all of them, or they'll accept some of them, but some have already returned. In other words, they went back to Israel's civilian airport. And the civil aviation sector, aviation has already issued a warning. If this continues, up to 50,000 airline tickets could be cancelled at the peak of summer. In other words, now in August, because there's no space, neither to land nor to take off from here. That's the truth. 50,000 passengers. So pay attention to what really matters in this news, because it's not tourism, guys, not at all. Refueling planes are the most important thing here, guys. for an air operation. It doesn't shoot, it doesn't carry bombs, it doesn't make any headlines, it just refuels the others in the air. That's what it does. But without it, no fighter jet can reach Iran and come back. That's what we need to understand. And when the Americans stop evacuating these planes and start bringing them back into Israel, that means only one thing. They're getting ready to keep flying for a long time. And why are they arriving in Israel? Because the airports over there on the other side in Qatar, Al Udeid, and the United Arab Emirates are at risk of being hit by Iran, by Iranian drones. To avoid risking those planes, let's move them back to Israel, which is farther from them and closer to Iran. That's what's happening now. No one brings a refueling plane back to plan a ceasefire, and that's it, folks. This is my gauge, and it's showing things are heating up right now. This summer here is shaping up to be intense, folks. Summer has already started, right? In August, it's going to get even hotter. And now we get to the important question, right? I want your attention here. What's happening right now? Is this a war or an operation? That's the question everyone is asking. You might think this is just a matter of wording, but it's not. It's the question that determines how big this story is. And today, the answer came out. On July 10th, Trump sent an official letter to Congress, the US Congress, and the US press got access to this letter, and part of it was released. And check out the exact words he used. Military action against Iran began on July 7th. Military action, not war. And he made a point to specify in the notification that only maritime resources are being used, no ground forces. And now I ask you, why would the president choose his words so carefully? Because in the United States, those words have legal consequences. Let me explain to you in 30 seconds why this is so valuable, folks. The American Constitution says the following: only Congress can declare war. Only Congress, the president, cannot. But there is a law created after Vietnam that gives the president a time window. He can use the armed forces for up to 60 days without Congress's authorization, as long as they are notified, as long as he notifies Congress. After 60 days, he has two options. Either he gets authorization to declare war, or he brings the soldiers back. Now you're getting the idea. If this is war, Trump needs Congress. And Congress has already voted against him in both chambers, as I showed you here yesterday, twice, right? But if this is a limited military action, a defensive operation, only maritime resources, no troops on the ground, then the 60-day clock starts again. And it started then, on the 7th, remember. I told you about this yesterday, here on the channel. Write down the date, which I think was last week, let's say Thursday or Friday, and start counting 60 days. And today, the news came out that the operation started on the 7th, and he has until around mid-September to do whatever he wants. That's why he writes military action, and not another word like war, for example. That's why he emphasizes that there are no American soldiers setting foot on Iranian soil. This isn't just wording, it's legal protection. Notice how carefully each word in the letter was chosen. This wasn't written by a general or by Trump, it was written by a lawyer, folks. The difference between war and operation affects how much freedom of action the president will have in the coming months. And now connect this with the theory I've been explaining to you here for weeks, because the two things fit together. 60 days from July 7th takes us to the beginning of September. And the American midterm election is in November. In other words, Trump bought himself exactly the time he needs to resolve this before the bill comes due at the ballot box. If he finishes this by September, look, Brent is going up to $81, okay? When we started the live stream, it was at 80, oil keeps going up, all right? If he finishes this by September, he'll arrive in November as the president who faced Iran and won. If he manages to do it, if this drags on until October, he'll arrive in November as the president who dragged America into another quagmire. In other words, he's going to lose. Every day that passes, the time pressure keeps mounting. The Iranians, who know this best and closely follow the calendar, understand it better than anyone. The irony is, Iran is actually doing the opposite, which no one mentions. The regime uses the word war in every statement, calls the Americans invaders, talks about aggression, because for the regime that word is useful. It mobilizes the people, those who support the regime, justifies internal repression against traitors, searching for traitors and hunting traitors, and demands solidarity from the Shiite Muslim world. So here we have an absurd situation. Both sides have been exchanging fire since July 7th, with ships sunk, people sunk, they caught fire. And civilians have been hit, and they can't even agree on what to call this. One side says operation to avoid seeking permission, the other says invasion to avoid explaining. But what's the truth? The Indian sailor who died on that oil tanker won't return because of a legal term. Do you agree? For him and his family, what it's called doesn't matter. Keep that in mind as it's what separates analysis from propaganda. Now, quickly, the other front that opened yesterday, the front between Saudi Arabia and the Houthis. And everything is connected, folks. What I told you here yesterday now has a new chapter that starts to explain a lot. According to the Israeli press, in the last phone call between the Saudi crown prince and Trump, the Saudi prince asked for authorization to launch a military campaign against the Houthis. And he received authorization from the Americans. In other words, the Saudi attack on Sana'a airport yesterday wasn't just a Saudi impulse, it was coordinated with Washington. And the market has already responded to all of this, and the consequences came quickly. The price of US crude is up. Look, actually more than 9%, more than 9 in a single day. It's the biggest daily jump since April. And the Brent crude barrel went over 70, and now it's already over $81. 9 in a day. This is the market saying in numbers that it doesn't believe this will end anytime soon. It's already starting to go up slowly, folks. Slowly. And the UN Secretary General went public to warn that the return of full hostilities would have catastrophic consequences for the region, for international peace, and for the global economy. He asked for the attacks to stop, all of them. And the world responded to his request with a night of fire and war in the region, folks. Who is this guy, right? His word means absolutely nothing. And the Houthis have already responded. Their military spokesperson warned all airlines in the world not to fly in Saudi Arabian airspace until the blockade on Sana'a airport is lifted. And here, I will tell you something in particular. If I had a trip to Dubai scheduled now, I wouldn't go. I wouldn't leave Israel for Dubai at this time, or from anywhere else, folks. I wouldn't use those airports for safety reasons. What if one of those drones hits, a drone that's flying around out there, nobody even knows where, right? Nobody knows the altitude. It could hit a commercial plane. It could bring down that plane, folks. And the Houthis are warning, asking the airlines not to fly in Saudi Arabian airspace. Look, they're saying this clearly. In other words, there's a plan to try to bring down a civilian plane, folks. Pay close attention to the message they're sending. And Saudi Arabia has once again struck Houthi territory, once again in the province of Sada, from where they supposedly launched the missiles yesterday against the airport in Saudi Arabia. In other words, this round is underway. Nobody is talking about this in the world for now. I don't think anyone talked about this anymore, folks. And I saved here for the end the news that nobody connected to this story, and it changes the map of the continent. Yesterday in the Oval Office, a reporter asked Trump about reports of Iranian drones in Cuba. Look at that, folks, Cuba. The island that's 145 kilometers from Florida. And Trump didn't contradict him, okay? Look at what he answered. If they have that, and they very well might have, and maybe they do have that, we'll take care of it quickly. We won't have a problem. We won't let that happen. There might be a drone stored over there. We're investigating that now. Maybe yes, maybe no, but we'll find out and it'll be quick. Words from Trump. End quote. Let me explain where this story began. It didn't just start yesterday. In May, the American press revealed, citing American intelligence, that Cuba had reportedly acquired more than 300 attack drones of Iranian and Russian origin since 2023. Look, guys, 300 drones of the same model that Iran sends to Russia to use against Ukraine. Remember the video here? They go to Russia, then Russia sends them back to Iran. It's the same drone, guys. And according to these reports, Cuban military personnel have reportedly already discussed using these drones against American targets. And now, let's stop everything here and think with me, guys. While the Americans are sinking the Iranian Navy in the Gulf on the other side of the planet, just 145 kilometers from the American coast, there could already be a stockpile there, right? There might be a stockpile of Iranian drones near their home. And this is where the question in this video stops being a matter of words and becomes a matter of survival. Today, the average American looks at this story and sees a distant fight that has nothing to do with him, something happening in the Gulf, on the other side of the world, that has nothing to do with his life. That's what they're thinking. But if just one of those drones takes off from Cuba, and there's a good chance that could happen, heading toward Florida, the Middle East stops being far away for Americans, right? It's going to show up right at their doorstep. And then there won't be any president calling this an operation. And today, I'm going to teach you two little words in Hebrew, because this whole video is about the difference between them, so we can wrap up this video. The first one is mifza. Mifza, okay? Mifza means the operation is limited, has a defined objective, has a beginning and a planned end. And the second word is milchema. Milchema means war. It's something else. It's when existence is at stake, when there's no deadline, when the whole country comes to a halt. And here in Israel, for you to understand this difference isn't just some college talk, okay? It's really not, guys. We live this right here at home. When the army calls up the reservists, the first question the family asks is always the same. Are we going to a mifza, an operation, or to a milchama, a war? And today, looking at the Gulf, that's exactly the question that Washington and Tehran are answering in opposite ways. The Americans call it a mifza, an operation, because that way the clock is ticking in their favor. The Iranians call it milchama, war, because that way the victim becomes a hero. But those who are at sea, those who are at the port, those who are on the ship, know the truth. When the fire doesn't stop, the name doesn't matter anymore, folks. What matters is who stops first. And before I leave you here, make a note of this time today. At 11 at night, the American naval blockade against Iran's ports begins. Today, folks, Israel time, 11 at night. I think in Brazil it will be 6 in the evening, I think, okay? 6, I think it's 6 in the evening. And from that time on, no Iranian ship and no one trading with Iran can enter or leave those ports. Only those going to and from Iran, the others can continue freely. If Iran tests this blockade with a military vessel, we will have a direct confrontation once again in the region. And things can escalate once again, folks. If they attack the aircraft carrier, attack the frigates anyway, there will be an even more intense full-scale war in that region. I'm here tracking every movement, every flight, and every decision to tell you sooner and better than the mainstream media. So, if this video helped you in any way to really understand what's happening here in the Middle East, leave a like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and share it with your family and work groups. Because if you didn't watch the whole video, guys, you're going to leave here without understanding anything, okay? Just the title won't help you. I promise you that if you stay, besides learning a lot of new things you didn't know, you'll be able to discuss, right? And you'll have the tools to be able to discuss with anyone who says something against Israel or against the United States, to know a little more about what's really going on here without sugarcoating the situation. Yeah, I'm a leftist. What's the reason for the war? Is it the same reason as the Vietnam War or the Iraq War or other wars? The guy called himself a leftist. I'm a leftist. Why did Trump start this senseless war? Is it for the same reasons as the Vietnam or Iraq wars or other similar conflicts? There's Echio, there's an Iranian woman that I suggest you look for. She and her sister live in Brazil. Actually, there are several Iranians, real Iranians. She's not a descendant, she's not just Iranian by heritage, guys. She came from Iran, fled Iran, managed to live in Brazil, okay? Watch her video. She has several videos, okay? If anyone knows her name, comment below. She's already well known in Brazil. She explains the reason for this war. He may or may not be a lunatic, but he's trying to free people being massacred in Iran. And she explains as an Iranian, not like those fake Muslims in Brazil who talk as if they know something about what happens here in the region without ever even setting foot here. Alright? So, listen to what she has to say. Listen to her. She'll teach you a lot and you'll understand clearly. She speaks Portuguese well, so you'll get what she says. She has a strong accent, but you can still understand her clearly. You'll also understand the reason for this war. Where's the grinder? I'm hungry. I burned myself. Davey, do you think Israel can rejoin the war? Yes, definitely. We'll enter the war eventually. Good morning. Don't respond to the Lula trolls or give them attention. I've already replied to João Mossara. This Lula troll just wants Lula's steak. I'm a researcher who prefers civilized debates. I already answered you, SC1 I told you here, okay? Go ahead, check out the Iranian woman, her sister and others are there too. The moment you start watching what she has to say, the system will show up on its own, the Instagram algorithm and these social networks, they'll start showing you more Iranian people who came, who fled Iran and went to live in Brazil, okay? And the stories are each stronger, each one stronger than the last. It's really worth watching, really worth it. I watch her all the time. A lot of what she says is really interesting. Very good, stupidity, you never know. Fake Brazilian Muslims, Jericho wrote. Yeah, there are guys out there who are from Brazil. There are Brazilian Muslims out there, even though there's a guy out there who's from Brazil. There's a Brazilian Muslim out there who goes on podcasts and talks about his ex. I don't think replying in the comments is possible since it's just lie after lie. He says he's Sunni but supports Shiites. That's it, guys. Even. So, that's it. Even the difference between one and the other? A Sunni defending a Shiite, only in Brazil, right? Because over there they've hated each other, fighting for 1,400 years. But in Brazil, this guy decided that he has to support the other side. Anyway, everyone is just crazy. Let's smash the like button. I know you already forgot to do it, so do it now. Want to see the little airplanes? Let's see the planes here orbiting. Look, I learned the word, guys. Orbiting right now. Let's see here. They keep going, guys. They keep doing the same thing. orbiting or on hold. In this case, they're not on hold, they're orbiting, because there's an attack happening here in the Bandar Abbas region. Look, there's an attack here. Okay, there was an attack today here in Bandar Abbas, and also earlier today there was one in Bushehr. Here, in this region, this is where the reactor is, which is partly controlled by the Russians. But look, guys, the attacks yesterday, remember I said that the planes, these refueling planes here, were concentrated in this region here, so the attacks were especially heavy right here. Look, and what's in this region? The Karg Island? Here, Karg Island, where all of Iran's oil is? It's here, guys, it's at this point. In other words, you come here to Bushehr, attack targets here, destroy targets in Bushehr, communication targets here in Bandar, Henrique, and also targets on Karg Island. And you keep destroying more and more communication targets, towers, radars, everything here in this region. That would be what a likely ground incursion would look like. At some point, this will probably happen. If it's not an official entry, maybe an elite unit will enter to carry out a special operation inside that mountain over there and solve the problem, okay? That can also happen. They can enter through White, they can leave here from Kuwait, they can even enter through Iraq anyway. Everything is closer here. In other words, this can really happen, literally. And the ships, let's see here, the ships. Look, the Iranian route is still open, right? With the transponder on here, on this side, there are no transponders on, okay? In other words, there are probably ships moving around here, but their transponders are not on. According to the Americans, they are moving around. And there are more ships here, Iranian ships, guys. The Iranian ship, look how interesting, the Iranian ship here, guys, right here on the Oman route, exactly on the Oman route. And these little dots here show the buildup of ships waiting to cross to the other side. In other words, there's a problem happening. There's a serious problem going on here. It could be mines. It could be the fear of being hit by a missile, okay? So, there really is a problem happening right now in this region and here on the map. Look at the planes here taking off once again from Ben Gurion Airport. This one took off from Jordan. This one is taking off from Ben Gurion. They're American planes. Okay, took off here actually. This one is from Jordan. Look, it's here. I just said what I just said. It took off from Jordan and is landing at Ben Gurion Airport now. Right at this moment, it's heading to Ben Gurion Airport. See? They're coming back to Israel, guys, because it took off from Jordan, because Jordan was hit in the first wave, in the second wave, and yesterday. Yesterday, they also intercepted 4 Iranian missiles that were heading to Jordan to destroy these planes. So, guys, to destroy this here, okay? So they took this plane out of Jordan now. It's here. Look, it clearly left from here in Jordan. There must be a military airport around here. It left from here in Jordan. There must be something here that isn't showing on the map. Then it went over there. The other one just turned off the transponder. Remember, there was another one here. There was another one here just now. It just disappeared from the map, and that's what's happening. It disappeared here. Look, now we have this one, and these 4 here, my friends. This is the live right now. If anything else happens later, if something more serious happens than what's already going on, I'll come back at any moment with the latest news, the latest updates according to FAR. You know, the best city in Israel. Whoever disagrees is just being silly. And Irukandi, who is Irukandi? Who says they know, but actually, it's not the best, you know? It's Irukandi. I completely disagree with you, but good luck. Congratulations, Davi, The Rock Israel. I found the name, but Maxima Nadim. That's it. I think that's the... A country like Uganda offered help, so why not for a ground invasion? Yeah, Israel should accept this help, right, from Uganda, from all these countries that want to come in and volunteer, just like Ukraine did. Why not? Why not? I would accept it right away, but nobody says anything. Monica Pereiro in Qatar, welcome. Thank you, Tonino, for the super sticker. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Attention. Final. Mortadella, block it. That's it, my friends. Greetings to all of Israel's friends. I'll return later, live from Israel, with another stream and likely more information. Take care. Yes, Clayton, there will be a live stream today around 5 or 6 p.m. Take care. See you at the next live stream.